Hello, artists. How are you today? Stephanie Aune coming to you from the banks of the Trinity River here in Six Rivers National Forest near Willow Creek, California. And welcome back to the studio. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate that you're going to spend a little bit of time with me discussing altered books. Now, we are on section 2. Let's just recap section 1. Number 1, we talked about choosing a book. Choosing something that has a good spine, something that has good strength, has a solid foundation to it. We also discussed, where's the stack of papers? Removing pages. So well over a third of the pages have been removed out of this book. On top of it, I did go through and glue 2 or 3 pages together in each, and for the remaining pages, I have prepped this book. Now, I do fully understand that more pages may need to be removed, that more pages might get glued together. So if you have a 2 and a 2, I might glue them together to make a 4 to have a nice, really strong page. So truthfully, you don't have to go through and do the whole book like this. I just like the fact of having it all prepped and ready to go. That's kind of exciting for me, actually, and I don't usually do that. So there's no right or wrong. You absolutely do not have to prep the whole book. That's just something that I've done for our series. But truly, when you have a little bit of downtime and you want to do something a little bit mindless, it's a great way to start to really connect with your book. And if you don't connect with your artwork as artists, if there's no connection, you're just creating something that's blah, right? So today I do want to talk about ephemera and about laying a base layer on your pages. And you might be saying, well, why? Why do you do that? Well, here's an example of what I'm talking about, okay? This is laying your underpapers onto the book. Right? So we will be doing this with almost every page that we do. Now, if we're choosing a technique that completely 100% covers up the base layer, such as doing something with fabric or whatever, then we're not going to put a base layer on. If it's going to be something that's going to be a complete waste of time, we're not going to do it. And that's just my philosophy. You can if you want to, whatever. But if you're never going to see it, I just don't see that there is a reason for it. Now, why do we do it? That's a really good question. So this is a canvas panel that's basically prepped. I did use it, I think, as a palette once. It's no big deal. I can still use that. Here again is the underlayer with a transparency deli sheet put over the top of it. And we'll learn more about transparencies coming up. So here is another canvas that you can see, that base layer underneath of there. I like to have that layer be seen. I think it adds a lot of interest. I think it adds texture, contrast, and especially when we have some really fun, cool, different shapes, sizes, and different papers like that. This will come through even if you don't see it super close. Even if everything is built up and built up and built up on top of it, it's a really nice foundation to start off of. And it's a great foundation to be inspired by. So the technical definition of ephemera, I'll just read you what Wikipedia says or Google Dictionary says. Items of collectible memorabilia, typically written or printed ones that were originally expected to have only short-term usefulness or popularity. So, they're talking like old advertisements, sports memorabilia or, programs, things like that. I think in mixed media, we have kind of a different definition of ephemera. And for mixed media people, ephemera is little pieces of paper that have cool stuff on them. Truly. So I keep a lookout for, this is an old French to English dictionary, and it has, sorry about that light, once again, it's making a glare. the French to English dictionary. So you have small printing, you have tight columns on that. Then you have something like this dictionary here, which actually has, okay, so here's the same size printing throughout, but here the words are in a different shape and form than like this one. So this dictionary has numerous different types of columns, different types of word spacing, and it's going to create a lot of interest. Now, this dictionary is not as old, of course, as this first one. Now, you may think, oh my gosh, you're tearing up that dictionary. Well, you know, this dictionary is from the early 1900s. It has no value to it. Truly, it's too torn up for a collector. It's not going to be something that somebody is going to keep for... It's not precious. And as much as we, you know, love to think that every book is precious, they do have an expiration date, basically. And that's when they go to thrift stores or library book sales or eventually the dumpster. And I like to think that what I'm doing is I'm rescuing the books and using them for a different purpose, absolutely. But still, I am repurposing something that has expanded its life. It's, you know, its life as what it was is expired. So I am always on the lookout for interesting, cool pieces of paper. You know, it's my passion. I also set up my own bin here of ephemera that's ready to go. So just to show you, right? Because I use it all the time. So I have a lot of different types of papers, different shapes and sizes, and all of that stuff cut up, ready to use. It's really nice to have that, right? Now, I do have an ephemera pack that I do offer for sale on my Etsy store, and it'll have about 130 pieces of ephemera in it, from those dictionaries that I showed you to, you know, some of these different characters in here. A lot of these pages will be in that ephemera pack. So if you're just starting out, you can find that on my Etsy store if I didn't say that. If you're just starting out, it's really hard to find, you know, where do you find something that has this type of printing on it? You know, these you can find, puzzle books, but gosh, I don't want to go out and pay $5 for a puzzle book if I'm just going to tear it up. The old recipe, you know, where do you find that? Well, I've got it all put into one package for you. If you have any interest, again, just go onto the Etsy store. Okay. Things that I would not use for ephemera, for your very base bottom layer, are papers that are too stiff, okay? Because they have a really hard time sticking down, like scrapbook paper or something that's on a heavier cardboard. Those don't necessarily work out to the best. Before we move on, I do want to talk about the 3 different ways that you can get started with your page. Now, of course, there are other ones, but these are kind of the main ways to seal your book pages. And what I mean by sealing your book pages is if you're using like watercolor on your book without having any type of sealant or protectant on it, you are going to get a book of mush. So it is actually important to create this base layer that we're talking about. So not only can you use ephemera, but you can also use like an acrylic paint layer, or you can use a gesso layer. We will be talking about both acrylic and gesso in a later section. So I do just want to mention them to you right now, though, because I think it's important that you understand that, you know, this process is not the only process to prep your pages for future work, okay? But this is the one we're talking about today because look at how cool that is. So let's talk one more time real quick about what type of adhesive to use. Now, I prefer Mod Podge. There is a very good reason that I prefer Mod Podge. I think that it dries quickly It dries clear, and for me, I've never had a problem with stickiness. Now, I have heard that people have a problem with stickiness with Mod Podge, and the reason could be for a couple different things. I have used it in humid conditions. I haven't had an issue with it. It's possible that if you're mixing it with any type of alcohol-based product, that alcohol product has caused a chemical reaction with the Mod Podge, with the water base. So it is, you know, not fully sticking. Also, Mod Podge doesn't really work great with like shiny magazine pages and really scrapbook papers. You really have to kind of push it down with. So you have to watch what materials you're using with it. But when you're just using basic ephemera, Mod Podge kicks butt, okay? So real quick, Mod Podge is polyvinyl acetate. It's a glue. It's called the permanent white glue. It has been thinned so that it can dry clear. Some people say that it's the same as like Elmer's glue, but watered down. Other people say that it isn't. Who knows? I don't know. I just know that Mod Podge works best for me. There are recipes out there to make your own Mod Podge using Elmer's glue and thinning it down and their ratios and whatever. If you want to try it, go for it. I personally do not want to risk Elmer's glue not drying clear. You know, this is a really gorgeous, beautiful surface to work off of. And I love it. And for me, there's no stickiness. There's no issue. You know, it's ready to go. And I'm stoked about that. The other thing that you can use, though, is like a matte medium. There are a couple things that I do not like about matte medium. Matte medium, gel medium is a thick acrylic polymer, and there's nothing else in it, so it's an acrylic polymer. It will dry clear. You can use acrylic medium to seal the surface if you're going to paint on, if you want it to be clear. So for me, gel medium in a jar that's about less than this size costs $13 to $15. There's a lot of them out there. If you want to try them, go for it. I get a gallon of Mod Podge for $30, and I have that down in the Amazon links. If you use the Amazon links, of course, they do give me a little commission, so that would be awesome if you did it. I buy it by the gallon. I use it, you know. $30 for that much glue. It's more expensive than Elmer's glue, but there's a reason for that, and I love Mod Podge. Okay, let's go down to the table, and I will show you how I glue on my pages. Okay, bye. All right, so as we discussed, I prefer to use Mod Podge. I get it by the gallon, and I put one in a squirty bottle, which I'll put a link, and then I put some in a jam jar, and it just depends on you know, what application I'm using as to what dispensary I use, dispensary product, you know. I have a new paintbrush on the way. I'm super excited by it. It was highly recommended by Kat, and I will have the link for that. Now, as you can see here, I like to put things on randomly. Now, you can put them on straight up and down if you want to do that. I think it creates more interest if we kind of stagger the pieces a little bit. And, you know, that's what we're looking for here. We are definitely looking to create interest and excitement and, you know, energy. It is. It's truly creating energy within the piece of work. And sometimes, you know, the book itself has great text. There's not, oh, you don't always have to cover up the book text. And sometimes just a nice little straight across here. That's great, right? So there's not any true rocket science to it. Like I said, these papers, I have all of these papers available in the ephemera pack. So, you know, I was kind of intimidated when I first started out, because I was like, you know, I don't have a variety of ephemera. And it took me a while to get a really good ephemera stash. I tell you, now I've got an excellent ephemera stash. Not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to like, ha ha. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. And it's interesting. And all of that great stuff. Because that's what we're trying to do. We're creating interest. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of keep putting these down, and I will bring you back here in just a second. So with the Mod Podge, we're just putting a light covering down. Now, this stupid piece here doesn't want to lie flat. Now, you can make it to where it purposely doesn't lay flat, you know? So you create more bumps and more texture with it. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do with this base layer that really do make a difference. I'm sorry, I want a couple more pieces of paper. Different types of painting or printing. Yeah, this was off of my Beauty Without Perfume. Huh, cool. Yeah, you don't get stuck in this part though, guys. This is meant to go quickly. This is meant to, you know, you don't have to do it quickly. You don't have to do it fast. You do whatever you darn well want to do. By golly, it is your universe. If you want to lay things down perfectly straight, you lay them down perfectly straight. If you want them to go cockeyed, you do it however you want to do. Here's one of these recipe books. I do have a couple of those. There will be limited ephemera. It's not going to be in every, you know, single pack from here on out. It's going to be in these first packs. The recipes will. You know, I just don't always have access to. Let's just put it this way. I put my finds, I give you my cool finds. You know? Yeah, do you need to have all these different kinds? Of course not. Do whatever makes you happy. Right? I like having a whole bunch of different ones. Do I want this side though? I want that side. Nice up and down visual element. And also people will ask too if I like to, you know, cut my edges off of the book like I did with this one, how I cut around. I prefer, personally, and this is a personal preference, to trim my ephemera. I just do, off of my edges. I don't like the sloppy feel or a sloppy look. Okay, so that one, so what I'm doing here for sure is my lettering is not going the same way. I've got totally different pieces, overlapping, and it's like, oh, I don't want to cover up that piece of ephemera. Don't get stuck on it. Okay, that's the number one thing that I can tell you is don't get stuck on, oh gosh, you're covering up that cool music sheet. Because most likely, most of this is going to get covered. Okay, none of it is precious. None of it is precious. It's just starting to create the interest. All right, I'm just getting these last few pieces put on here. That one has a lot of white. Not a real fan of seeing the white. And what should we put right up here in this little top corner? I love this particular design element of that book. All right, so I'm going to let that dry, which just takes a couple minutes, and then we will come back and chat about it and talk about our final process. All right, bye. Some people, again, like to keep the overhanging, overlapping pieces of paper. I'm not a real big fan of that look. I don't mind a little bit of that, or, you know, if you tear it off instead of cutting it off, you know, do whatever makes you happy. This is, oh, see, but sometimes you cut into the book pages and you mess it up. This is, of course, not the safest way to do this. It's the pages are still a little bit wet. But, and if you close it while the Mod Podge is still wet, you'll get, you know, pulling up like that just did there. So just wait. Be patient. I'm not very patient sometimes. So there it is, guys. There's the first page that I did so that I could show you what it looks like when you're all done. And this page. Beautiful, huh? A lot of energy, different colors of paper. Look at that. Blah. Which would you rather work on? Now, also, not only does it give us more interest, but it has protected and somewhat sealed the pages. So you can use a little bit of water on it. If you completely douse it, of course, you're going to trash your book. You know, let's just take common sense. But you do have somewhat of a protective layer to begin to build upon. And we want to do layer upon layer. And if you're going to do that, you have to start with a good foundation. And that's what this is, man. This is definitely your strong foundation. This is a super strong page. Of course, we have 2 pages of ephemera and then 2 pages glued together. And that guy, he's not going anywhere. It's a super strong page. And look how much interest there is there, guys. That's what we're doing. We're creating energy, laying the foundation. So Kat Austin has been really helping me out with this, and Kat is the admin on my Facebook page as well as a colleague, and we have these wonderful art conversations, and she's been helping me to think through this process and to really figure out how to condense what I want to say, but make sure that I don't miss anything in the process. And I think that she really summarized it best, and I'm just going to read to you her feeling about ephemera and why we use it. So if you allow me just 1 second. Kat explains ephemera as, it lays the foundation for the long-term relationship. It sets the tone for the conversation. If there's no substance, the conversation is boring, meaningless, and it leads nowhere. I mean, we've talked to people that are a little bit boring, right? There's nothing there. So if you have interesting papers, it's like having an interesting conversation with somebody. Look at that. And it sets the stage for the relationship or a friendship that you can get positive energy from and build upon. And that's cool. If you have more than one person in the conversation, you create an energy and maybe even a party. So likewise, the more elements that you have as your foundation to art on, the more meaning and interest your piece will have. And I love the way she summarized that. I think it's a great way. I mean, what a cool conversation this would be compared to that, right? Pretty cool, huh? Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something from it. Be sure to tune in next Monday, and I will give you the next section. Chapter 1 has 6 sections in it, so this is section number 2. We're going to get section number 3 next Monday. Also on Thursday, we will be doing a new Hacking the Masters, and that one is going to be cool. Patreons, you are going to love the project. I can almost 100% guarantee you're going to love the project that we come up with. It's going to be cool. Now, please, down in the notes, you will see the Etsy link. So if you have any interest at all at that ephemera pack, it is there on my Etsy channel, Etsy store. And then Patreon, if you're interested in joining Patreon, it's $10 a month. You do get a piece of art from me when you join. It's a small piece of pickle art today. It's just a small piece of art. And then also you get entered into the monthly drawing just for being there. I mean, I like to give good prizes as my drawings, which you can ask my Patreons. I also like to provide you a lot of extra content with the images, and you Patreons will be getting an extra video for every Hack the Masters that we're doing. So there's a lot of great stuff on there every week. Yay! If you want to join, just go to patreon.com and all that good stuff. That's in the notes also, comments. If you have need for a new paintbrush or more Mod Podge, please use the Amazon links. I would highly appreciate it, as I'm an affiliate and I'm recommending it, and you use that link and you purchase from that link, I do get a couple pennies. I don't get a lot, not a lot, but a little bit adds up. So I would highly appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Have a great day, and we will chat soon.